My name's Celeb Morgan and I'm the guy people call when things fall apart. Leaky roofs, busted gutters, cracked siding, stuff no one notices until their couch is soaked or they hear the wind whistling through a hole in the attic. I run a small home repair business out here in Savannah. It's called Morgan Craftworks. Nothing fancy, just real work. No flashy branding. No slick ads. Just an old Ford with my name on the side, 6 solid crew members who know what they're doing, and a name in town that people trust. That's always been enough for me. But what most folks don't see is what this gritty, hands-on job has built beyond the homes I fix. It paid for the walls of my own house, the one Alyssa and I share. It put her through culinary school back when she was all passion and blistered palms from chopping for hours. It funded her dream, a skincare studio filled with soft music, eucalyptus candles, and those smooth cream-colored walls. Every cent came from the dirt under my nails and the sweat in my boots. So maybe I was a little foolish, but I figured my birthday might mean something. A little appreciation. Maybe a smile. Hell, even a slice of cake from the corner store would have been enough. But when I asked Alyssa if the family was coming over for the simple dinner I'd planned, nothing big, just pot roast and my mom's famous apple pie, she didn't even look up from her phone. Just rolled her eyes and said, "Your brother Derek's throwing a barbecue that day," like I hadn't already heard it. Then came the jab. "Your birthdays are always kind of intense," she added with that flat tone. Amber, my sister-in-law, sprawled across our couch like she owned it, cackled just loud enough to dig the knife deeper. "Oh yeah, remember last year? The grill caught fire." I faked a laugh. That was Derek's fault, he left the plastic wrap on the brisket. Alyssa shrugged. "Still counts." I looked over at my mom, who was fidgeting with her rings at the island like she does when guilt gets to her. "You coming?" I asked. She hesitated, winced like the words stung. "We'll stop by after the barbecue, if there's time. You know how Derek is when he hosts. Always the golden boy. Has to have the whole clan there." Alyssa, sipping her herbal tea with that smug little smile, tossed in the final blow, "A birthday for the gutter guy? Come on." She wasn't joking. That was just who Alyssa had become, glossy, tired of everything, like the world was some dull rerun she couldn't escape. I stared at her, trying to trace the path back to the woman who used to light up when I walked through the door. Now, I barely got a glance. I gave a slow nod, let the silence stretch. Then I said it, quiet, calm, and cold, "Don't say I didn't warn you." She blinked confused, but I didn't repeat myself. I stepped outside, leaned against the truck that had hauled my life and my livelihood across Savannah for years. The air was thick with that heavy southern humidity. I wasn't upset, not the way they expected me to be. I'd learned a long time ago not to count on applause. But that didn't mean the silence didn't sting. Didn't mean I didn't feel the weight of it. There's a big difference between needing recognition and actually earning it. And standing there, looking out at the houses I'd saved from storms and time, something shifted inside me. They thought I was just the guy with a wrench and a ladder. They had no idea what I was planning. The blueprint I was drafting wasn't for a house, it was for something bigger. This birthday? It wasn't going to be about cake or guilt trips. It was about building something that would outlast all of them. Let them laugh. Let them toast ribs at Derek's barbecue. Because when the spotlight hit, when the curtain finally rose, they'd realize what I was really building. And they'd remember this birthday not because of pot roast or plastic on the grill, but because it was the day I started becoming unforgettable. As a kid, I'd stare out my bedroom window and picture a crowd, not a stadium, just people. People who really saw me. Who noticed the wins, even the small ones. But that never happened. Teachers skipped my name. Family overlooked the milestones. I got used to clapping for myself in the quiet. Maybe that's why I took up building, because once something's fixed, it's undeniable. A sealed leak. A repaired roof. Proof that you matter. Not applause. Just evidence. Still, that ache never really left. Every time Derek got praised for switching marketing jobs like changing socks, or Mom went on about Amber's PTA bake sale like it was a Fortune 500 venture, I felt it. That deep, quiet invisibility. Nobody ever asked how I built Morgan Craftworks from scratch. Not even Alyssa. To her, I was just the guy who was handy around the house. I heard her say that once while giggling with a friend in our kitchen. "Celeb's great with DIY," she said, like I was some weekend hobbyist. Never mind, I ran a 6-figure company with 3 trucks and a client list that reached all the way from Beaufort to Bluffton. But this year? I was flipping the script. A few months back, I got a call from a man named Edmund Hale. Old money Savannah. The type who wears loafers with no socks and doesn't even own a phone with apps. He'd seen my work after a storm tore through one of his estates. And what he wanted, well, that's where everything started to change. I rebuilt the back patio, patched up the siding, and helped the groundskeeper throw together a quick shelter for the tools. No spotlight, no handshake photos. Just me doing what I do best. Solid work, quiet, dependable, and apparently that stood out to him. I like your ethic, he said, swirling something amber in a glass that looked older than both of us. You build. You don't ramble. I respect that. Then he asked me something that caught me off guard. Ever think about teaching it? I froze for a second. Teaching? I hadn't. But the way he leaned in with that gleam only old money has, like he already knew the answer, made me pause. This city's full of kids with nowhere to go, he said. Nobody's showing them how to build anything. You could change that. We've got a nonprofit. You'd run it. I should have walked away. I had enough on my shoulders already, clients to manage, payroll to meet, and a wife who barely looked at me anymore without sighing like I was something she forgot to throw out. But I didn't say no. I said yes. Quietly. No Facebook posts. No family announcement. Just me and a growing idea. I started laying the groundwork for something called Skilled Path Initiative. The goal? Take teens straight out of high school or those who didn't even make it that far and teach them how to work with their hands. Roofing. Siding. Carpentry. Wiring. But not just trades. We'd build something deeper, discipline, pride, direction. A shot at something better. I didn't tell Alyssa. Not right away. Every time I opened my mouth to share it, she was knee-deep in some rant, her product line delayed, someone copying her label design, the usual storm of self-importance. And when she wasn't talking, she was just gone. Lost in that screen, nodding at nothing like I wasn't even there. So I kept it to myself. Figured she'd hear about it soon enough. The launch was scheduled for my birthday. Same day Derek was throwing his legendary backyard bash, beer pong, burnt brisket, and enough noise to drown out anything meaningful. Almost poetic. One brother grilling ribs, the other trying to reshape lives. And no one had a clue which one would actually matter. I booked the Foundry Hall. Got Hale's people involved in media coverage. Called in favors from council members who still owed me from fixing their basements post-flood. I even personally invited old clients, especially the ones I'd helped after hurricanes, the ones who answered the door with tears in their eyes when no one else showed up. Every night after clocking out, I poured my energy into this. Planning modules. Sourcing affordable tools. Working on branding with a local designer. I even carved out time to teach the first round of students myself. And still, I told no one. Let them think I was sulking in my shed, brooding over another birthday nobody cared about. Let them call me the gutter guy one more time. That silence? It wasn't discouragement. It was fuel. Every dismissive smirk. Every offhand joke. It just pushed me harder. I wasn't doing this for revenge. Not really. I didn't need to make anyone look bad. I just needed to show them what they'd never cared to see. Because this build wasn't for Alyssa. It wasn't for Derek. It wasn't for my mom waiting to toss me a late compliment like it made up for a lifetime of oversight. This one? It was for me. And this time, they wouldn't be able to look away. You know the thing about being overlooked? People get used to doing it. They don't even think. It's like breathing. You speak? They chuckle. You dream? They wave it off. You try? They remind you, politely or not, that you're just the guy with a hammer. The week before my birthday, Alyssa didn't just ignore my plans, she campaigned against them like she was trying to kill a bill in Congress. One night, while exfoliating in the bathroom, she said it like a weather update, "I'm going to Derek's. Everyone will be there." Then, with a laugh, she added, "Why miss out on fun for meatloaf and paper plates?" I didn't even glance up. Just kept scrubbing my boots. I thought we agreed on something simple this year. She scoffed like I'd suggested we spend it in a cave. Simple doesn't have to mean depressing, celeb. That word stuck. Depressing. As if an evening with the man who paid for her education, her studio, and every thread of her curated life was some kind of punishment. Like I was a failed dream, not the reason hers came true. 2 days out, Derek sent me a selfie, him posing with his new grill, shiny as hell, the kind with a dozen knobs and a built-in meat thermometer. The caption read, "Sorry, man. Next year." Next year, huh? Like birthdays were an infinite resource. Like I hadn't already let too many slide by unnoticed. Even my dad sent an early text. Not a call. Just a flat message, "Happy early birthday. You know your brother's events bring the whole crew together." Yeah, I knew. I nodded at each excuse. Let every passive jab land where it would. But what they didn't realize was, I'd already started the countdown, and the moment was coming faster than any of them could imagine. I played the part. Smiled when Alyssa brushed me off. Said it was fine when she asked if she should bring a bottle of wine to Derek's like she was headed to something meaningful. She didn't know I'd already locked in the foundry with a deposit I couldn't get back. Didn't know I'd been meeting with city reps on my lunch breaks, wearing my work boots and a shirt stained with sealant. Didn't know I was building something behind the curtain, and once it opened, there'd be no turning back. While she scrolled through dress options for a backyard barbecue, I was setting up press interviews. Some local outlets, a few regional ones. One editor remembered me from years back after that brutal storm when I practically rebuilt a whole neighborhood. She said she'd show. I reached out to past clients, folks I'd helped when their roofs caved in or their walls buckled under water damage. I didn't ask them to come for me. I asked them to come for the kids. For the ones we were going to lift up. For the communities we'd help hold together. This wasn't a party. It was a tribute. To the years I spent wiping sweat from my eyes in 90-degree heat. To the mornings I stood on rooftops before the frost melted. To every dollar I saved when I wanted to blow it. To every time someone looked past the dirt on my jeans and never saw the empire I'd built one nail at a time. They never expected much from me. Just a guy with a ladder. The man you call when the gutter falls off. Always reliable, never remarkable. But I didn't need sparklers or speeches. I just needed one spotlight. And I was about to step right into it. Everything about the launch was crafted to reflect the people this was for. The Skilled Path Initiative logo looked like a rising sun, but the rays were tools, hammers, tape measures, wrenches. Centerpieces were built from reclaimed wood. Old toolboxes painted gold. Framed letters from our first apprentices sat near the entrance like silent testimonies. Our staff wore name tags, no titles. Just their names and who they used to be. Janitor, electrician. Dropout crew chief. Ink and truth. Meanwhile, by day I stayed in character. Just celeb, the guy hammering in nails in West Ashley, checking siding in North Savannah. But by night, I was building something far bigger than a house. Something that could outlive every forgotten birthday I'd ever had. Alyssa still thought I was moping about some pot roast and candles. She waved around her RSVP to Derek's party like it was her ticket to the Oscars. The night before the event, she tried on 3 sundresses, spinning in the mirror, then asked, "Which one looks more fun?" I didn't even blink. Whichever helps you pretend I'm not doing something that matters. She froze for a beat, but only a beat. Don't be dramatic, celeb. It's just a barbecue. Just a barbecue. Just a birthday. Just a guy with calloused hands and a warehouse full of pipe dreams. Fine. Let them laugh. I was done explaining. The night arrived. I stood outside the foundry adjusting the cuffs on a jacket Alyssa had never even seen. Royal blue. Soft check pattern. Fit like it was made for this exact moment. The boots were mine, polished, but still leather work boots. Because I wanted them to remember who I really was. The building towered over downtown Savannah, all brick and polished steel, historic and proud. No giant signs. No balloons or noise. Just a soft golden glow lining the steps, velvet ropes swaying in the breeze. Usually the place held art shows, galas, or luxury weddings. Tonight it held something rarer. A celebration not of wealth but of grit. Not of titles but transformation. Inside, the space glowed. The centerpieces were copper piping twisted into elegant shapes and filled with wildflowers. Toolboxes, dented, cleaned, proudly repurposed, sat on tables like silent trophies. Lanterns hung overhead, casting warm light on plaques that read resilience. Craft. Legacy. And my apprentices? They looked like royalty. One kid wore a deep green suit and inside the lapel was stitched, first one in the family to wear a tie. A young woman with braids wrapped into a crown greeted guests with the confidence of someone who had earned her place. She'd helped rebuild 3 homes last year. Now she was owning the room like she built it herself. I walked through the space, shaking hands with clients I'd rescued from collapsed ceilings and hurricane damage. Council members, the same ones who used to ignore my calls, grinned like we'd always been friends. Business owners nodded with interest. Even a local chef from Alyssa's social circles came by, curious about the culinary training wing we were planning. At 7 p.m. I glanced at the front row of seats. 6 of them, all neatly arranged. 1 for Alyssa. 2 for my parents. Derek and Amber had theirs. And 1 more, left open for something I wasn't sure would come. Dignity, maybe. Or just someone who saw me. All of them were empty. I didn't flinch. I expected it. The foundry buzzed with energy. A string quartet played a smooth, jazzed-up version of Ain't No Mountain High Enough. The crowd moved like something real was beginning. And it was. Because while they were passing potato salad at Derek's place, I was making history. Glasses clinked. Laughter flared up in pockets like bursts of fireworks. But I kept glancing at the time. Not because I was expecting anyone. Just muscle memory. When you've spent your whole life waiting to be noticed, checking the clock becomes second nature. The foundation launch was set for 7:30. Press due at 7:15. That left me 15 more minutes of quiet. 15 minutes before everything changed. I made my way to the bar and poured a finger of bourbon, neat. No ice, no frills. Just the burn, just the weight. The kind of drink that makes you feel every scar and every win. As I took a slow sip, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Councilwoman Davis. She leaned in with a smile that said she knew more than she let on. I didn't realize you were cooking up something this powerful, celeb. Most people didn't, I said. She shook her head. This isn't just a foundation. It's a movement. I gave a nod, grateful. But the words slid off me. Recognition was never the point. I built this because I was tired of seeing kids written off just because they didn't want to sit behind a screen all day. Because I remembered what it felt like to be invisible in your own home. I walked a slow circle around the room, running my fingers along the grain of reclaimed tables, double-checking name tags, watching the apprentices settle in, shoulders back, heads up. They were proud. You could see it in their posture, in their ease. But that front table? Still untouched. At 7:10, our photographer came in with his gear hanging off one arm. At 7:12, the mayor's assistant stepped in with a folder full of endorsements. At 7:14, I heard high heels clacking against stone. I didn't turn. Not yet. Because right then, standing under the soft lights of that repurposed steel cathedral, something settled in me. I wasn't empty. Maybe those seats were. But I wasn't. I was full. Of focus. Of purpose. Of peace. Because while Derek was out flipping burgers and Alyssa was sipping cheap wine from plastic cups, I was here, building something with meaning. And for once in my life, I didn't need anyone to clap. Because I was already standing in the applause. At exactly 7:15, the stir started at the doors. It began with footsteps, hurried, scattered. Then voices, confused and curious. Doors swinging too fast, velvet ropes pulled aside. The photographers showed up right on schedule, lenses out, flashes warming up. I tucked my sleeves into place and made my way toward the stage just as a fresh wave of guests flowed in. Their phones buzzed, press release had just gone live. Celeb Morgan launches Skilled Path Initiative to honor Savannah's forgotten builders. First the local wire. Then regional. The air shifted. People leaned in. Pockets vibrated. Whispers lit up like sparks. Then I spotted them. She said something about a foundation, a guest whispered, still scrolling. I thought this was just small. And that's when Derek stumbled in, barbecue sauce on his polo, smelling like smoke and sweat, eyes darting like he'd wandered into the wrong play. But Alyssa? Alyssa entered. The double doors cracked open like stage curtains, and in came my wife, heels sharp, dress bold, her walk rehearsed. That crimson red gown didn't belong in a backyard. Her makeup was pristine, lips like polished glass, eyes drawn sharp enough to slice. But her expression? Pure confusion. She stopped 3 steps in, frozen in place as the music carried on behind her and the crowd buzzed around. What is this? She mumbled. A young photographer, probably new, mistook her silence for authority. Ma'am, are you with Mr. Morgan, team? Could you tell us how long he's been planning this? Alyssa blinked like she'd been slapped. This is his event? The kid nodded, already lifting his camera. Yes, ma'am. Mind if I get a photo of you with the founder? She didn't respond. Still catching up. I stood back, behind a small group of guests laughing and talking like they'd witnessed something remarkable. No one noticed that the newcomers were family. No one cared that the woman in red had once laughed at this night like it was beneath her. I stepped forward, drink in hand, came up behind her left shoulder. Good turnout, I said casually. She jumped a little, turned to see me. Her mouth opened, then closed. Nothing but air. You look good, I said. Didn't know red was the new backyard casual. She blinked hard. Celeb, what is this? Why didn't you tell me? I kept my voice calm. You never asked. But it's your birthday. It is, I said, taking in the room. People exchanging stories. Apprentices smiling wide. Laughter that felt earned. And it's also the start of something bigger. That's when my mother appeared beside us, clutching her pearls like they were holy relics. Celeb, sweetheart, why didn't you say anything about all this? I turned to her, voice steady. Because you already had plans. Amber tried to smooth the awkward silence with a compliment. This place is, wow. Super fancy. I glanced at Derek, who looked like he just wandered off a college lawn party, barbecue smoke still clinging to his shirt. Barbecue go all right? I asked. He gave a small shrug. Yeah, man. But this? This is something else. Yeah, I said simply. It is. Alyssa still hadn't moved. She was staring through me, scanning the room like she was trying to wake up from a dream. Her eyes locked onto the projection screen, my face up there, caught in moments. Me on rooftops. Me mentoring kids. Me shaking hands with city leaders like I belonged there. You've been planning this for months, she said softly. I have, I replied. And you didn't say anything. I met her gaze, calm and direct. Would it have made a difference? She didn't answer. Didn't need to. That silence said more than words ever could. The room dimmed. A hush settled over the space. Forks hovered mid-bite, conversations cut off mid-sentence. The spotlight shifted toward the stage. All eyes turned. A large screen above the podium flickered to life. I stood just off to the side, hands steady, pulse even. I've climbed roofs in lightning storms. Torn off siding with frozen fingers. What was one more moment in front of a crowd? This was my territory. Real work. Real impact. The kind of effort no one could steal or dismiss. The video began with a sweeping drone shot, Savannah rooftops, some spotless, others wrecked, with tarps flapping like wounded sails. It cut to a clip of me on a ladder, drill in hand, teaching a teen how to measure siding next to a cracked foundation. Moment after moment, the work I'd done in silence came to life under that soft, golden light. Work no one clapped for back then. Now they watched it unfold on screen, mouths closed, eyes fixed. Alyssa stood near the back, frozen in place. My parents had slipped into seats near the buffet, too far back to pretend they were ever meant to be front and center. Derek loitered behind them, hand on the back of his neck, unsure whether to leave or hide. But the rest of the room? They leaned in. Then the testimonials started. An older woman in a sweater with stretched cuffs looked straight into the camera. After the hurricane, Celeb didn't just fix my roof. He helped me bring in groceries. Dropped off bottled water. Didn't charge a dime. A single mom appeared next, holding a sleepy toddler. He rebuilt the stairs out back so my boy wouldn't trip. Said it was nothing, but it meant everything. Then came a teen in paint-streaked jeans, his voice shy but proud. I was failing school. Nobody expected much from me. But Celeb gave me a shot. Put me on his crew. Now I train other guys like me. I caught Alyssa shifting her weight, uncomfortable now. I didn't look away. The screen faded to black. A beat of silence. Then applause. Soft at first, then rising, swelling like thunder under steel beams. I stepped forward into the light, bourbon in my blood, boots firm on the ground. And for the first time, I wasn't just in the room, I was the reason it existed. I scanned the crowd, not just the donors or politicians. The builders. The apprentices. The neighbors who'd once cried in my driveway. The ones who remembered what I did, not what I wore. I leaned into the mic, voice smooth. Some folks thought my birthday dinner wasn't worth showing up for, I said. A few scattered laughs. Nervous, unsure. I let the pause breathe. They said it was a little embarrassing to throw a party for a guy who fixes gutters. This time, the laughter rolled in warm and full, not mocking, just real. I nodded. Well, fixing things is what I do. I stepped closer to the edge of the stage, every word clear. I seal leaks. I patch walls. I rebuild what time and storms try to tear down. I paused again. Let them sit with it. But tonight I'm fixing something bigger. No one moved. I'm not just here for windows and rooftops. I'm here to repair futures. Stillness gripped the room. You could feel it, the kind that only shows up when something real is said aloud. I glanced at Alyssa. Her eyes were locked on me like she was seeing a stranger. Or maybe someone she'd never bothered to truly know. A man who rebuilt himself quietly while she rolled her eyes. I started all this with one truck, one ladder, and the guts to show up when others didn't. I raised a hand slightly, palms calloused and lined with years of work. Tonight, we launched Skilled Path Initiative not for claps, but for the next generation. For every kid who's been told that working with your hands makes you less. I looked down at my palms again. It doesn't. It makes you more. This time, the applause came fast, loud, unapologetic. A few stood. Some clapped slow. Some wiped their eyes. I closed with one last truth. You don't need a suit to build something that lasts. Sometimes all it takes is showing up ready to work. And just like that, I stepped back into the music, into the moment. And they saw me finally as more than the guy who fixed the gutters. The spotlight dimmed, but I didn't. I didn't fade back into the sidelines. I didn't feel smaller. For the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone else to step up and say who I was. I already knew. Builder. Founder. Fixer. Leader. Celeb Morgan. Maybe my family hadn't seen it yet, but the rest of the room? They did. Clear as day. The second I stepped off that stage, the room came alive. Not with noise, but with warmth. People stood. Not all of them, but enough. The applause wasn't polite. It wasn't performative. It felt earned. There were those who clapped like they understood exactly how much this moment had cost. Others didn't move, just nodded, quiet and steady, like something inside them had shifted and they needed a second to take it all in. I walked through them, not in a haze of confusion, but clarity. A kind of calm I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't playing small anymore. I wasn't dimming my pride so other people could feel tall around me. This night, it carried my name not just on the program, but in the very bones of the space. My fingerprints were in every inch of what we'd built. I shook hands, patted shoulders. The first to greet me was Mr. Hale, tailored to perfection, the definition of old money cool. He clasped my shoulder and grinned like a proud uncle. "You've got something real here, celeb," he said. "This isn't a foundation. It's a revolution. You lit a fire tonight. Let it burn." My throat tightened. "Thank you," I managed, "for trusting me with the match." Then came the mayor. Flashbulbs, a handshake, and a quiet comment about fast-tracking a city grant. It all felt surreal and yet deserved. But as the glow of congratulations began to fade into the after-party, I saw them. Off to the side. By the buffet. On the outer edge of everything I'd built. My family. Alyssa stepped forward first, heels clicking slower this time, her usual confidence worn thin at the edges. Her mascara was smudged. Her mouth moved like she wasn't sure what the first word should be. She stopped a few steps away, hesitant. "Celeb," she said, voice barely a whisper. I didn't know. I tilted my head. "No," I said, soft but steady. "You didn't want to know." She swallowed that like a stone. "I thought you were just putting together a little dinner." I said. But I was also building something. Something bigger than a casserole and a paper plate. She looked around, finally really looked. The guests still lingering. The banners. The young faces full of hope. Her lips parted like she was trying to catch up to the truth. I don't have the words." "You don't need words," I said. "You just needed to be here." Before she could answer, my mom came up behind her, arms already stretched wide. She wrapped me up in a hug so tight it pulled the breath from my lungs. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered. "I didn't know this meant so much to you." I held her a moment, then pulled back gently. "It's meant everything to me. For years." Then came my father, hands shoved in his pockets. That awkward half-smile he wore when emotions made him uncomfortable. "You got us," he said with a sheepish chuckle. "Didn't think you were planning all this." I gave him a nod. "That's kind of the problem, Dad," I said. "You never really thought at all." He looked away, then back. "You're right." Derek stepped up next, barbecue stain faint on his collar, hair flattened from a long night. He looked like a kid called into the principal's office. "Bro," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I thought you were doing, like, plumbing jobs. Some home repair stuff. Didn't know you were building all this." I held his gaze. "I've always been more than you gave me credit for, Derek." He nodded slowly. "Yeah. I see that now." Amber lingered behind, fingers laced nervously. "It's beautiful, celeb." "Really?" she said. "I didn't know you had this in you." I gave her a soft smile. "That's the thing. I never lost it. You just never looked." Then Alyssa reached out. Her fingers brushed mine, light, almost apologetic, like she wasn't sure she still had permission. "I was wrong," she whispered. "About a lot." I looked at her, not angry, not bitter, just done carrying the weight of her disbelief. "Yeah," I said. "You were." I didn't take her hand. Not to be cruel, but because this wasn't about making things look good under soft lighting and pretty centerpieces. This was about respect. And respect isn't something you turn on for cameras. It's built in the quiet moments. The ones nobody sees. The ones when you choose to believe in someone, even when it's not convenient. They hadn't, but these people had. And for now, that was enough. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon. And for a second, I froze, unsure if it was real or just a memory trying to be forgiven. Alyssa hadn't cooked breakfast in years. Not since the early days. Back when she'd pull me into the kitchen laughing, excited to have me taste whatever recipe she was working on. Lately, it had just been smoothies and travel cups, and complaints that bacon made the house smell heavy. But this morning, there it was, bacon, and something sweeter in the air. Cinnamon, maybe? I came down the stairs slow, cautious, like moving too fast might break the illusion. Alyssa was at the stove, hair tied back in a soft bun, wearing one of my old oversized t-shirts, the kind she used to sleep in when we still fit naturally together. There were eggs sizzling, pancakes stacked, fresh fruit laid out in a bowl like a centerpiece. I stopped in the doorway, not sure which felt more surreal, the smell of a warm breakfast or the quiet guilt in her eyes when she turned to see me. "Morning," she said, careful. I nodded. "Morning." We didn't rush into anything. No small talk. No fake smiles. She set down 2 plates. We sat across from each other like strangers in a peace negotiation. A quiet treaty between syrup and silence. "I've been unfair," she said after a long pause. Her fork barely moved. "Last night, I saw you in a way I should have seen you all along." I didn't move, just let her speak. "I married you for your kindness, your grit. You were never just fixing things, you were building people. I used to admire that." Her voice faltered, but she didn't stop. "But somewhere along the way, I started thinking I needed more, something flashier. I stopped seeing your strength as enough." She looked up at me then, eyes wet but clear, like she finally remembered that not all value comes wrapped in glitter. I still didn't speak. There was more she needed to get out. "I shouldn't have skipped your dinner, shouldn't have rolled my eyes every time you mentioned plans. You always made room for me, paid for my goals, believed in me when no one else did. And when it was your moment to shine, I chose a backyard barbecue." She let out a bitter laugh, one of those laughs that ends in a tear. God, what kind of wife does that? I took a slow breath. My stomach was too twisted to touch the food. "You threw me away for ribs and folding chairs," I said softly. "I know. I didn't ask for much," I continued. "Just a little time. A little space to be proud of what I built without having to beg for it." She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, trying to steady her shaking fingers. "I was trying to prove something," I said. "Not to investors, not to strangers, but to the people who've always treated me like I was just the guy with the hammer. I built something that night, and none of you noticed until the lights were bright enough to blind you." Her tears came quieter this time. "Do you want me to leave?" she asked. The question hit hard, hung in the air between us like unfinished drywall. I looked at her, really looked. She was still the woman I married. Still sharp, still composed, but cracked now, open in a way she never used to be. I didn't feel victorious in that. I didn't want her broken. I just wanted her awake. "I want respect," I said. "Not the kind that shows up when the cameras are rolling. Not the kind that slips on a red dress once it's safe to be seen next to me. I want the kind of respect that lives in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when no one's clapping." She nodded slowly. "And if I can't give you that?" she asked. I didn't blink. "Then you've already left." The silence that followed wasn't cruel. It was honest, like we'd finally pulled the walls off this thing and could finally see what was left underneath. She stood quietly, wiped her cheeks, cleared the plates. I didn't stop her. As she passed behind me, she paused, rested her hand on my shoulder, just for a second, but it carried the weight of everything unspoken. I looked at the empty chair across from mine, the steam still rising from untouched pancakes, and it hit me. Respect doesn't come with a wedding ring, or a shared last name. It's something you earn, day by day, in the small choices, in the quiet loyalty of showing up when it's not convenient. She hadn't, but the people in that hall had, and for the first time in my life, I was done making room for people who always reached for the door. The house felt quiet now. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just hollow, the kind of quiet you notice when someone's missing and you're not sure if they're ever coming back. 2 weeks after the foundation launch, Alyssa moved out. Said she needed time. Said she had to figure out how to respect me without a spotlight telling her I deserved it. She packed with a kind of quiet reverence, like walking through a museum of memories she never really looked at until now. Before she left, she placed a note on the counter. "I don't want to lose you, but I need to learn how to believe in you without the world telling me to." I read it once. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in the drawer next to our wedding photo. Not erased. Not forgotten. Just shelved. Alyssa moved in with her sister for a while. Said it was temporary. Just space. I didn't ask for timelines. Didn't press for promises. I let the silence speak. Life, on the other hand, didn't slow down, it slammed the gas pedal. My phone rang constantly. Numbers I didn't recognize, people from other cities, other states. all asking the same thing: how do we build what you built? Foundations, trade schools, hands-on training centers. They didn't just want blueprints for buildings, they wanted a blueprint for belief, for a shot at something real. My parents started calling more often. Mom asked if she could help out at the next foundation event. I told her yes, but I had one condition. Show up for me, I said. The way you always do for Derek. There was a pause. Not defensive. Just honest. A quiet shift. And then she said, okay. Derek started texting me too. Mostly dumb stuff, grill memes, dad jokes, updates about his fantasy football team. But the tone? Different. He wasn't trying to outshine me anymore. He was just trying. And maybe for now that counted for something. At the ribbon cutting for our first full training center, 3,200 square feet of workbenches, tools, classrooms, and solid hope, I stood behind the podium and scanned the crowd. My apprentices were all there, lined up in crisp polos stitched with the Skilled Path Initiative logo. Some had their parents beside them. Others stood solo. But their chins were up, shoulders squared. My parents sat in the second row. Mom wore a button with my name on it. Dad brought a clipboard, maybe trying to take notes on how to be present. Derek showed too. Fresh shirt. No stains. A quiet win. But Alyssa, she wasn't there. I told myself I didn't expect her to be. Still felt the weight of her absence anyway. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just that quiet ache that shows up when someone doesn't come home. That night, I got a letter. Not a text. Not an email. An actual letter. Envelope handwritten. No return address, just my name. I opened it at the kitchen table, the one that still had 2 chairs even though only one had been used in weeks. Inside was a note from a teenager in Remains Atlanta. His name was Tyrese. He'd seen a clip of my speech online and mailed the letter through the foundation site. They always told me I wasn't smart enough for college, he wrote. I figured maybe that meant I wasn't good enough for anything. But watching you speak, seeing the way people clapped for a guy who builds with his hands, it gave me something. A way forward. You make working with your hands look honorable. That line hit me like a hammer to the chest. I sat there, fingers trembling, shoulders heavy, and cried. Not out of pain. Not even out of pride. But because for the first time in my life I felt seen. Not humored. Not tolerated. Not pitted. Truly seen. And in that moment, every offhand joke, every rolled eye, every time someone said I was just the guy with the ladder, it all stopped feeling like shame. It became scaffolding. A kid I'd never met felt less alone because I decided to stop shrinking. That mattered. I pinned Tyrese's letter to the corkboard above my desk. Right beside it, I tacked a second note, this one from Elena, one of my apprentices. Her handwriting shaky but sure. Thanks for giving me a second chance before I even asked for one. The board kept filling up after that. Notes. Messages. Thank you cards. Small tokens. Big impact. Proof that what we were building wasn't just a foundation, it was a future. Even if the people closest to me had been late to the table, others were arriving right on time. And somewhere in that, I found peace. Because I realized something simple. Something freeing. Respect doesn't have to start at home. Sometimes it starts where things are broken. And fixing the broken? That's always been my trade. Our second foundation event was quieter. No press. No cameras. No velvet ropes or politicians in tailored suits. Just promise. Just community. Just rows of work tables lined with projects in progress and the sharp, proud scent of sawdust in the air. It wasn't loud. It didn't demand your attention. It earned it. We hosted a community outreach day. Invited families. Let kids too young for the program come see what their siblings were building. I watched a 10-year-old girl grip a power drill like it was a magic wand. Her whole face lit up like someone handed her a future. Her mom stood behind her, hand pressed to her chest, like she just witnessed a door swing open for her child. And then I saw her, Alyssa. She was standing by the welcome table. Hair pulled back, sleeves rolled, clipboard in hand. She wasn't posing. She wasn't putting on a show. She was working, checking people in, smiling, giving directions, handing out flyers like she'd been part of this from the beginning. I froze for half a second. We hadn't spoken since the ribbon cutting. No fight, no fallout, just clean distance. I hadn't expected her to show up. I definitely hadn't expected her to volunteer. And yet there she was. Different. Not in the obvious ways. Not in makeup or clothes or tone. But in the quiet ones, the kind of change that doesn't shout. The kind that shows up early, rolls up its sleeves, and chooses to be useful. And for the first time, I didn't see her as the woman who'd missed the moment. I saw someone trying to earn her way back in. Not with words, but with work. She was different now. Calmer, steadier. No designer bag hanging from her shoulder. No restless glances at her phone. Just Alyssa, standing behind a folding table, asking each guest if they had dietary restrictions before handing them a name badge. No performance, just presence. I walked over, unsure how to start, but she beat me to it. "Hi," she said gently. The voice was familiar, but stripped of the tension it once carried. "Hi," I replied, my eyes drifting to her name tag. It didn't read Alyssa Morgan, just Alyssa, outreach volunteer. She followed my gaze. "Didn't want to assume the last name," she said softly. I raised an eyebrow, half a smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. "Fair enough. I emailed the coordinator last week," she added, nodding toward the sign-in sheet. "Asked if you needed help. Figured if I just showed up, it might seem like a scene." "You didn't," I said. "You're doing great." She looked at me then. Really looked. No pride. No defensiveness. No pity. Just the quiet honesty of someone who's finally stripped everything down and is standing in what's left. "I've been thinking," she said, "not just about what I missed, but why I missed it." I nodded slowly, hands resting in my back pockets. And I let the wrong things define you," she admitted. "And I let the wrong people define me." The room buzzed around us, power drills humming in the background, kids laughing over sawdust and scattered nails. But between us, stillness. "I'm not asking to fix everything," she said, voice steady but low. "Not today. Maybe not ever." She took a breath. "I just want to be part of what you're building however you'll let me." That hit harder than I expected, because I'd spent years laying foundations with no one beside me. Brick after brick, not knowing if anyone would ever walk through the front door. And now here she was. No flash, no script, no camera crew, just open hands, asking for work. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Later that day, I caught a glimpse of her kneeling beside a little boy, helping him glue small pieces of wood into the frame of a crooked birdhouse. She wasn't dressed for the moment, probably stained her jeans, but she laughed, easy, full. And for a second, I saw a version of her I hadn't seen in years. The one who used to drag me into the kitchen to taste cookie dough off a wooden spoon. The one who once believed in us before the spotlight ever mattered. Rebuilding a marriage doesn't come with instructions. No blueprint. No checklist to sign off on, just effort, repeated, quiet, undramatic. But she was there, really there, and that was the first nail. My family started showing up more, too. Not every event, not always on time, but they came with a different energy. Derek stopped trying to win the room and started asking how he could help. Dad helped lay down floor mats in the new training wing, grunted through it like he was carrying bricks of penance. Mom brought cookies for the apprentices every Saturday morning. No one asked her to. And me? I kept building. Not to prove a point anymore, but because it's who I've always been. I'm not just the guy who climbs roofs and seals leaks. I'm the one who shows up when things are falling apart. The one who figures out how to hold the damn thing together even when no one else sees the blueprint. So when a guy approached me during that event with sawdust on his sleeves and awe in his voice and asked, "Hey, aren't you the guy whose birthday video went viral?" I smiled. "Yeah," I said. They didn't show up at first. Then I looked across the room. There was Alyssa, shoulders relaxed, humidity curling her hair, no makeup, no mask. Just laughing with a teen apprentice over a crooked birdhouse. And I realized, sometimes the people who show up late still find their way in.